Now, if you're new to calisthenics and planche training, this video is for you. I'm going to take you through the basics of how you train this, how we get strong in the position, the sets, the reps, the drills, and the important things you need to get right from the start. So let's first talk about positioning and setup that's going to make things much easier and make you feel much stronger. So external rotation, so turning the hands out, is going to make us feel really strong in the position. If we go internal rotation, our elbows tend to collapse, and this isn't a strong position. The opposite is that external rotation, and then I'm pushing up and away through my shoulder blades. But go a little bit wider with your hands. So if your normal handstand position is like that, so shoulder width apart, for the planche or for strength movements, I'm going to externally rotate and turn those hands out further. So my planche position is roughly that position. So look at my index fingers that are going out to the side. Now, with planche training, you'll see people do it like this. Some people will do it like this. And a lot of people will use P-bars. Now, we want to do the P-bars exactly the same way. So notice what I've done with the P-bars. I've turned them outwards. So it's like turning my hands out. So that position is exactly the same as that position. The P-bars just make it a little bit more comfortable for you to go past your hands with your shoulders. But when you're learning, I'd recommend you do a bit of both. I do some work on the floor without the P-bars and then some work with the P-bars. And then before you start each session, make sure you warm up the scapula and the wrists and the hands. For the hands and the wrists, I would just spread the fingers, shoulders on top of the hands, do some circles in different directions, peel the hand up and down. I'm a big believer of this peel. So we get through the knuckles, through the palms, and then you'll feel it in the forearms as well, peeling up and down in different positions. Next, let's talk about the shoulder blade, so the scapula. So in the position of the planche, I've got that external rotated hands, and then I'm going to push my shoulders, my upper back, as high as they can go in that position. This is a super strong position. The opposite would be internal rotation and retraction, so collapsing through the shoulder blades. This is a weak position. I can't push at all like this, but if I push up, externally rotate, and really round the upper back between the shoulder blades, that's going to be a very strong position, and that's the position we're aiming for our planche position. So think of the movement as being up and forwards. Now I recommend you video from the side so you can see your shoulder blades and make sure that you can push up to protraction and go down to retraction. But the most important part for the planche is that protraction, so be able to get all the way up there. Now when you get into that position, you shouldn't be able to see your shoulder blades. They should hug into the rib cage, and we should be able to hold that for time. So a good goal and a good warm-up is to hold there for 10 seconds. If that feels quite easy, do exactly the same up on the toes. Make sure you're in full protraction. See if you can get that 10-15 seconds in that position. So I'm going to set up in that same way. External rotation, hands a little bit wider. Push up to protraction, up onto tiptoes. Now it's good if you can set up a camera or have a mirror so you can see what you're doing from the side. Really round the upper back into that protracted position, and then all I'm going to do is lean forwards a little bit, and I'm going to try and turn the feet over. So now I'm on tiptoes. So in that position, now what I don't want to do is have the hips up in the air. I want to try and lower the hips, keep the upper back rounded, and lean forwards as far as I can. Now it's good to be able to get up to 10, even 20, 30 seconds in this position and just hold for time. We want to go as far forwards as we can, but don't lose that protraction and don't raise those hips. When you're first starting, I'd recommend that you rest for about a minute and then go again. So you do 2 sets of those planche leans for around 10 to 20 seconds, but just make sure that position is perfect. Next, we're going to visit the tuck planche position. So for this, I need to make sure that I can get my body into a tight ball. So just practice that. Go into a kneeling position on the floor and then just see how comfortable it is for you to get your chest towards your knees. Now, if that feels very tight in that position, this is just a good stretch in itself, and I'd recommend you do this daily. So basically just go into a child's pose position, so holding this position in a tight ball, and just hang out there for time. If this isn't comfortable for you and it feels like your body wants to get out of the position, when you go into your tuck planche, instead of being able to hold in that position, your body's going to try and spring apart. And when you spring apart, it's going to make it much harder to hold the position. So it's a good example of when you increase your mobility, this calisthenic skills become much more easier. Your body's in more of an efficient position. Now I'm going to demonstrate the tuck planche on the P-bars, but you could continue on the floor. I'm just showing it for variation. So I've got the hands externally rotated, the P-bars are externally rotated. I'm going to push up into a protracted position, and I'm just going to walk into a tight ball position. So goal here is to have arms dead straight, really good protraction, pushing up as hard as I can. And then if I can, I'm going to try and reduce the weight in my toes. So I'm still keeping my toes on the floor, but I'm just holding that tuck planche position with the least amount of weight in the toes. But my priority is that protracted, rounded back position, and then roughly try and have the hips in line with the shoulders. We don't want to be in this collapsed position down here, and we don't want to be in a very high position like this. So again, video yourself from the side and see if you can line up the hip and the shoulder position while you're in protraction with those dead straight arms. Now I recommend you try first of all with 3 to 5 sets of that tuck position, holding for around 8 to 10 seconds. Now if you already have some strength around that position, you could even reduce the feet even more with the goal of trying to lift one foot up or both feet up in that position and hold for those 8 to 10 seconds. But if the quality of the position collapses, go back to that light toe assist. When you're starting out with the planche training, we need to really create a really strong foundation that's going to be there for the harder progressions. And I'd recommend majority of your training isn't done with a band. You'll see people using band assist and it's a really useful tool, but I'd first get the majority of your reps and sets done without the band, because if you start relying on that band too much, it's going to be really, really hard to get rid of it in the future. Now, once you've done those working sets in the planche lean and the tuck planche position, I would start to explore some dynamic repetitions. You can either use high P bars like this, or you go between chairs or boxes. The same setup, external rotation. We want to try and be able to push up into protraction there. So I'm rounding the back, like I'm doing a tuck planche, but I've still got toes on the floor, and then I'm going to come through to an L-sit position and just see if I can push back up to that position, back to the L-sit. So I'm going between the two. Now if that feels impossible, you can use a step, hold that protracted position, lift one leg, and just practice the eccentric, the down phase to that L-sit. And then see if you can swing back, use the toe assist again if you need to, hold, come back again. Now this one might feel very challenging, just explore with a few sets if it does, but it is setting those foundations and getting you to explore the movement, ready for those progressions to come later on. But we can afford a little bit of play with this one because we've done those good working sets earlier with the perfect technique. Now if you are a bit stronger in the position, you can start to go between harder L-sit variations, harder tuck holds, static position for longer before returning back to the L-sit. But if you can do that, you probably don't need this beginner tutorial. And if you already do have a lot of experience with the planche, you can use the exercises that I've gone through today as a warm-up and then just start progressing them even further. That's what I'm doing today. I'm going into my own planche session and I've used these as a warm-up. If you'd like more handstand and calisthenics strength programs, check out my app. Link is down in the description. Stick any comments below and I'll speak to you in the next one.